No. It's a very clear and it could be a very short answer that it's a no. But if you look at some of the studies we have done, the latest one, the fashion and climate, we see that, with the current pace, how we operate our business today, we are missing the target of the Paris Agreement, the trajectory of 1.5 degrees by 50%. So that's one indication. In the past, we have on the pulse of the fashion industry report also looked at the progress of our industry, and we're seeing that it is definitely not moving fast enough. Not even if the industry was not growing, but also considering this is a growing industry, that we have big challenges ahead of us. So again, no. There are great progress being made, but across the board, it's a no. Because it is such a complex, immense challenge we have ahead of us. So nobody, not even the most advanced companies or NGOs or unions, have all the answers. So without that collaboration, we're not going to be to where we want to be in terms of having a sustainable industry. So I think it's about saying, like, we need all the talents in the world, all the competences in the world, and they don't come from one place. They come from a myriad of different places with different competences within entrepreneurship, innovation, unions, brands, business models, etc. And we need all of them to come into play to be able to solve this and be at a place where we can say we have a sustainable industry. And not necessarily. I think we see outsourcing, but we also see building stronger teams within businesses on sustainability. I think it's a maturing industry, sustainability, and that means also, for a brand to be able to navigate this, you need pretty strong competences internally to be able to do what is, right to your brand DNA, to your challenges, to what is material for your companies, and to navigate that maze. You really need strong internal competences to know what it is exactly you are doing. And going back to your earlier questions, where is it you collaborate with NGOs? Where do they might have a stronger competence compared to you? Or you identify, this is where I'm weak, this is where I have challenges, I need to work together with X union, Z NGO, or this innovator to solve the problems. So not necessarily vertical integration. It might be the right solution for some issues, but across the board, not necessarily. I think we need to find out how can we decouple value from volume. Mm-hmm. So we see right now we are exceeding planetary boundaries. We are not on the path of the Paris Agreement. We're not protecting biodiversity to the degree that we have to. We're not reversing climate change. So basically, we have to see how can we have a thriving industry that creates prosperity for people and community, protects biodiversity, reverses climate change, and works within planetary boundaries. And for that to happen, we need to look at new business models that decouple that still creates value. And we still want an industry that creates all these jobs and is a thriving industry and allow us to, individually see who we are, express our individuality through fashion. But we just need to look at the different business models that allow us to do this, focusing on the value. For sure, we're seeing that that's outgrowing the normal retail market. So, and maybe the question is not so much the next Inditex, because it might not be that it's all big companies. Maybe it's smaller companies. Maybe we're already today, our industry is dominated by a lot of SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises. So I'm sure we will have an industry of big and smaller enterprises, and all of them have to come to terms with this issue of where do we see growth, where do we see value, how do we create value for not only our shareholders but our stakeholders. Those will be, I would rather say, the winning companies are the ones that are prepared for a future where we won't have access to the same level of virgin materials, where consumers will start asking more questions, where investors, for them to see that their investments are future-proof, will start asking the questions, are you ready for a future where this will happen? So I think these are the questions that any company would have to ask themselves beyond what they're looking at for the next quarter only. I would not point out any one company. I would rather say we need a bit of everything. Some companies would find inspiration from the world leaders. They would say, this is who I want to be. Others will find, will be inspired by companies who use volume to drive progress. So we need all companies at all levels to really inspire the industry to move forward, because it depends on who you are and where you are on your journey in sustainability, what will really tick you as a CEO. Some would say that the leaders are just too far away, I can never be there. So they need actually the other leaders to inspire them who are at the same level, who said, we did it, this is super difficult, maybe the business case on the short run is not there, but we know we need to be there, we need to make these initial hard investments and take that uphill battle, because if we don't, we'll hit the wall, and then it will be truly difficult if we don't start acting now. So I think we need all players to take leadership. That is why we have a fashion CEO agenda framework to inspire leaders on where to focus their attention. First of all, and what is an ideal future? I think that future is pretty far ahead. Or you could say maybe we don't need the title of Chief Sustainability Officer, but we need leaders within companies to navigate this. So even if you were like at 100% integrated, so sustainability is part of anything you do in your business and they all have the competences, you still need the leaders, be that in the CEO or somewhere else. They need to be out there explaining who you are as a brand or a company, what is it you're doing and why is that aligned, and then navigating. Every year we find out there are new challenges. We find out that we impact the world positively or negatively in new ways. To navigate that, make sure that you as a brand stay the course on your strategy, that you're also always aligned with where is your biggest impact potential and the biggest challenges. Somebody needs to lead that. So we cannot just leave it to integration. We also need strong leadership to make sure that we stay the route, even when it's difficult, even when it's an uphill battle, that somebody has that and shows that leadership. I think we will always need that. No, I think it should be affordable to all. I mean, even though consumer interest is growing, it's growing from a pretty low level. So most consumers will not today pay extra for sustainable products. A few, and it's good. It's an upward trajectory, which is good. But we cannot expect most people to pay extra. What we should have is actually, ideally, we should have legislation that makes sure that actually the most sustainable products are the cheapest one. Talking about and that is one of the biggest challenges today on the regulatory framework, on policymakers also showing leadership, is saying how can they create the incentives for companies to accelerate their work, and that is working with tools like VAT and other incentives to drive this. And then we have to make it easy for consumers. Today it's the jungle out there. I mean, if I want to be a sustainable fashion consumer, what should I look for? It's very, very difficult. It should be as easy as it is to buy an organic versus a non-organic banana. And it's not, but we're getting there. HIC just last week, launched their transparency initiative where we're trying to say, how can we have one consolidated way of communicating to consumers? And that is what we need to drive. And then it should be easy and affordable, because we don't want only this to be something for the few. We want this to be something, and most companies or most customers, it shouldn't be anything they even think about it. It should just be everything that is sustainable. I don't think, growing, we need to create value. So for companies, they need to be thriving, but they need to find a way, how can they be thriving without that being closely linked only to volume, right? So of course, bigger companies can use their existing volume and value, and with those big volumes, actually create the drive to accelerate the use of new materials. So in that sense, that some of the challenges we are faced today with is that we have lots of sustainable materials, but they are at very low scale. So to drive some of that acceleration, sometimes the bigger players can definitely help in doing that with their volumes to make sure that this becomes something that is affordable also for the smaller companies. So we know we need a bigger both. In the bigger picture, globally, we are working beyond planetary boundaries. So we have to, at the larger scale, decouple that, and in the future see how can we have successful, thriving industries that creates jobs and prosperity globally, while reducing that connection and creating value and redefining what value is for our business. you can start asking the simple questions. So either, I mean, if you don't feel, that it's the thing to do in the stores, then what is your preferred brand? The brand that you connect to, then send them an email on Instagram somewhere else and ask them what they're doing. Ask them to be transparent, so that a person like me, chief sustainability officer out there in brands, they would love that business case to be more apparent with their consumers. So if they hear wow from the stores, if they hear wow, people are asking these questions, they're like, wow, amazing. See, that's why I'm doing my job, because we should be out there. We should be out there communicating more about what we're doing. So all of us, we can be more active. We can start asking all these questions to brands and supporting this. And we can also ask this of our policymakers, because I think the policymakers have a big role to play, and they've come pretty late to the game. So I expect a lot from policymakers, because them creating that framework, the right incentives, has to play a big part, and we need them to really up their game and be more accountable than what they have been. Yeah. I mean, it won't be feasible. It won't be a thriving companies, because we will see a new reality already now. We know it's not like we're questioning will climate change happen. It's happening every day already. It's already affecting the availability of virgin materials. So the companies who's not adjusting to different supply chains, different use of raw materials, etc., that won't know, or that doesn't know how to communicate to their stakeholders, their investors, even their employees, would they be able to attract the top designers, the top people? I don't think so. Would you want to work for a company who's not aligned with your values? I think the next generations will look even more to that, even though that has been the case for quite some time. So I think no. I think the challenge right now is that we all realize that, you said 10 years. We all realize that the challenge is that on the short term, the business case is not there necessarily to work on sustainability. You still have lots of investors who don't care, who are in it for the short term. You still have lots of citizens, consumers out there who just said, this is just too complex. I don't want to deal with it. I just want the cool stuff. So I think we have to show some strong leadership right now to take that uphill battle, even when it's difficult. So that is the leadership we need to take now on the shorthand, from industry leaders, but also for policymakers. Do some of those hard decisions that will pay back multiple times over the future years.